Breaking news.
At that point, I labeled her as dangerous. She is a national threat. I need the FBI, CIA, police, law enforcement, everybody to come after this woman. She is dangerous.
And I've been living fast life, but I see it in slow. Oh no, and you see my lifestyle, I got G's in the double. See many people there outside where they feed man's oboe. Oh no, and me I stand the defender like Joseph Yobo. My girl say she want Netflix.
Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Amina and I'm back with another banging video. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I hope by the end of this video you join the team and become a subscriber. As you guys can see by the title, today I am going to be doing a story time. My first story time ever on YouTube. So like when it comes to story times, I used to do a lot of story times on like my private story, and a lot of the people that I have on there was telling me that I should do story times on here. So like I was kind of debating about it, but I was like, you know what, let me go ahead and put y'all on to the tea that be going on. Okay, so I don't know what I'm gonna title this story time yet, but this is a story time about how me and one of my coworkers was about to tussle. I was hesitant on telling this story because the characters that are involved in the story, like I ended off being like on a good note with them after like the situation happened. But at the end of the day, I feel like me telling the story is very important because the meaning and the, you know, lessons that are involved in the story really holds like a lot of weight. And on top of that, it could help like a lot of people who were in my shoes. So honestly, I'm sorry if y'all see this video. It's no hard feelings to y'all, but I gotta let the story be known, okay? So without further ado, let's jump right into the story.
Run that back, Turbo.
Yo, Turbo, they hit that subscribe button yet, right? And they clicked that like button? Okay, play that wild story for them. So for those of you who don't know, I am pursuing a career to be a future physician assistant. And in order to do that, you have to have patient care experience. So for the past like 3 or 4 years now, I've been working jobs in healthcare, and majority of the positions that I've had, I was working around a lot of older people. So with this job specifically, again, like I'm gonna keep things really discreet. I'm not gonna tell you guys too much detail because like I said, I ended off on a good note with these people, and I don't want to make it obvious of who these people are because at the end of the day, I know that they know that their actions were really wrong, and they more than likely regret it because they got the right one. But yeah, so I'm gonna be very discreet. I'm not gonna tell you guys too much details, but just know that this story took place while I was working one of my healthcare jobs. So a little backstory. Prior to me working in healthcare, I've always wondered like what people meant like when they said, you know, working at so-and-so place, like there be a lot of drama like in nursing homes and hospitals. I'd be like, really? Like I can't really picture like it being as much drama as like the drama that I've seen or like had with like, you know, high school or like, you know, with teenagers and stuff like that. Because again, like these people are, well, the coworkers that I was around were like all older people. So my thoughts was that, okay, like if I'm gonna be working in a place where like I'm surrounded by older people, I would expect them to be more mature and less mixy. But girl, it wasn't given that. It was given 10 times worse, and you'd be surprised. So when I first started the job of which me and the coworker was about to tussle, I honestly, like, I stayed to myself. I was more so reserved. I was quiet. I didn't really interact with anyone like that besides, you know, hi and bye and little conversations. Like people would talk to me, but I would be more so like, I would feel so awkward because like I'm always like surrounded myself by people of my age group. So like this was like a big like, oh my god, like, you know, I felt like their conversations was always different from the conversations I would have, or their conversations would make me feel like out of place because it's just like, y'all talking about this? Like, I don't even talk about this with my friends. Like, you know, it's weird. So I was just on some type of time where like, okay, I'm gonna let y'all talk and whatever, but I'm gonna still reach out on some professional type of stuff, and we gonna talk about like work related stuff. But anything outside of that, yeah, it wasn't given that. So the specific coworker that I got it in with, we're gonna name her auntie because I really felt like she thought she was my auntie. So this coworker was African, and you know, like, for my Africans out there, y'all already know when somebody's African and they see that you African and they're older than you, it's automatically giving auntie role. Like, y'all know what I'm talking about. It gives like, oh my god, do this for me, oh my god, like, y'all come on, like, y'all know what I'm talking about. When I first started working there, auntie wasn't there. She was out of work, but she had came back, like, I'd say about like 3 months after me, like after I first started. So when I met auntie was really nice. Auntie was like, you know, if I need help, let her know. She was like always talking to me, asking me questions about my family, my life, like how, like about my siblings, and like, you know, everything. You know how Africans are, very much
Want to know everything, want to...
you know. So I was being like really cordial with her, and on some type of timing where, like, you know, we was cool. Like, she was very nice. She seemed like a good person, and I was like, you know, I was like, okay, whatever. She never asked me my age, but obviously she knew that I was young. And honestly, I've always wondered what made everyone knew like I was young, because I had my mask on, and I don't know, was in my voice, because at work, like, I was giving mature, like, I was quiet, like, you wouldn't even be able to tell like I was immature. And I'm not even really immature. Like, I have my little like immature moments with my friends, but like with other like people, like coworkers especially, like at work, like, I'm very much mature. Like, I literally remember me floating to another floor, and some lady, like, she was staring at me, and she was like, oh my god, you're really young. And then I was like, yeah. And then she was like, you're really young. Like, it was giving very condescending, and it was just like giving like, okay, what if I was to be like, oh, you're really old? Now that would hurt a lot of feelings. But anyways, let's get back to the story. So the first funny thing that I realized was that, like, on the unit that I was working on, like, they would have rules. And basically, you know, a lot of hospitals and a lot of nursing homes and stuff like that, there are like rules for units, like in terms of like schedule, like how a unit does a schedule, or how a unit assigns admissions and things like that. So I would realize that, well, now I realize, of course, because at the time, like, I wasn't really keen to the rules. I didn't really know like what the rules were. Like, I honestly didn't even really care. Like, I would realize that, like, auntie would like talk to the nurses and like switch around stuff, and purposely, because like I wouldn't know like what was going on. Sometimes it would be things that like would switch around that would affect me, and sometimes it would be just general things that she, like, you know, was picky about. But honestly, like, I found that out later, so I didn't really realize that was funny vibes until now. So here comes when I realized auntie was moving funny. So there would be times where like certain patients needed to be monitored closely for like safety or whatever the case may be. So it was a time where I was scheduled to, you know, be a sitter and basically sit down with the specific patient and watch them, monitor them, make sure that they're okay, and things like that. So auntie was assigned to relieve me for my break. So during that time, like, I would sleep during my break. So what I did was, like, I would pick chairs that like would like recline back, so I could knock out during my break, catch up on some sleep. So when auntie came to relieve me, I had my computer and I had my chair. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna take my chair with me so I could go to sleep, which was what most of the people on that unit did. So I took my chair, and as I'm rolling, she's coming in. So she's looking at me like funny, like she's like, and I'm just looking at her like, what's going on in my head, but I didn't say it out loud. She like, oh, you taking your chair? And I'm like, yeah, like, yeah. So then I realized that she's upset that I took my chair and didn't bring her a chair. Again, for my Africans, y'all know, this is a sign of like blatant disrespect. For my Africans, y'all already know. Like, I feel like, so I feel like the main issue with her, like, she was mixing culture with business. And when it is business, we're co-workers. When it's outside, you could say, okay, maybe I'm your auntie. And the thing is, like, she's not even from my country. Like, she's not from, like, anywhere like that. I could be like, okay, auntie. No, she's not even from my country. Like, this is somebody that's, like, you know, you're not even really my auntie. Like, why are you expecting me to do stuff? Like, girl, what? Baby, stop. So I'm just like, yeah, I'm taking my chair. So I'm rolling my chair out, and then she was like, oh, hold on, let me get a chair. So I'm like, okay, do your thing, but I'm taking my chair. I mean, honestly, I could have gotten a chair, but I really wasn't even really thinking about that. And to be honest, there was a chair literally right outside. She could have dragged it. Like, what's the big deal? So I took my chair and I went to break, came back, whatever. So I believe it was the following day or like a few days after that situation happened, I came to work and I was a little late that day. So as I'm like getting a chair, because remember I told you guys like I would like chairs that recline back so I could take a nap during my break. So as I'm looking for a chair to take, Auntie screams across the hall like, "Oh, I have your chair."
These bitches too fucking old to be acting like this. She almost 40, acting like a little
How old are you, ma'am? Like, you too old, first of all. We're like, okay. So at this point, I have already secured the chair. And that chair kind of goes back, not as much as a chair that like I would usually take, which is the one that Auntie had. But in my head, I'm just like, are you serious right now? It's giving kid. It's giving kiddish behavior. So I scream back. I'm like, oh, okay, it's fine. I have this one right here. It goes back too. Like, okay, you want a cookie? You want a cookie? So in my head, I'm like, WTF. But I like tell her like I like this one better anyways.
You thought you ate?
Like, you thought you ate? You thought you ate, babe? No. So I don't know if it was the day after or a few days later because this happened a long while ago. But I'm rolling my chair, and this time I got the chair that I usually take, which was the one that Auntie was fiending for, and the one that Auntie was trying to rub in my face that she had. So I'm rolling that chair to the lounge, the staff lounge area, and Auntie is in the hallway with, we're gonna name her Tina. Tina is a lady who basically like oriented me. She trained me, and me and Tina was cool. Like prior to Auntie coming back from like, you know, her being out, me and Tina was cool. We would chop it up a little, and you know, I'd seen her more of a mother figure or auntie figure rather than Auntie. Tina wasn't African, but Tina, like, you know, she was cool. But Tina, me and Tina ain't have no problems until later on, but we're gonna get to that. So I'm rolling my chair to the staff lounge, and Tina and Auntie is in the hallway. Mind you, Tina and Auntie is like really close. They like besties. So as I'm rolling my chair to the staff lounge, Auntie comes like she's talking to Tina, but then she comes like, this is me rolling my chair. This is me. I'm rolling my chair to the staff lounge. Them two is like right here. This is Tina. This is Auntie. So I'm rolling my chair into the staff lounge, and Auntie goes, "Oh, I'm gonna sit." No, she don't even say nothing. Did she say something? I don't even know if she said something. But Auntie just comes and like she acts like she's about to sit down on my chair like this, y'all. Say this is a chair right here and I'm rolling it. Auntie goes like this and then gets back up. Like she acts like she's about to sit and then gets back up. So I'm just thinking like, what the hell was that? Like, what was the purpose of that? Like in my head, I'm like, yo, what? And when after she does that, her and Tina starts laughing, and Tina's like, stop. So I'm like laughing with them too, because I'm like, what's funny in my head? Like, I'm like, what's funny? Like, I want to kick you too. But I'm just thinking like, what the hell? So I just brush it off and go into the locker room. But then I started thinking like, yo, is she upset about the day that I took my chair to the staff lounge to take a nap? Like, is she really upset about that? Like, she's really that pressed? It seemed like she was taking it as a sign, like I was basically insinuating that she's dirty or I don't want her on my chair. But no, it wasn't giving that. I just wanted my chair to go to sleep. Like, what's the issue? So that right there was already like the second or third red flag. So the third red flag comes. So our unit was planning like a little party for like a going away retirement party for the manager that was on that unit that time, because our manager was retiring. So they were asking for donations. So I like submitted my donation as my part that they asked for. And you know, they had the party or whatever, cool. I come the day of the party. It was in the morning, so I didn't like stay for the party, but I come the day of the party, and as soon as I go into the locker room, one of the nurses is like, oh, they saved you food from the party. I'm like, oh, I didn't even know they was going to save me food, but that's nice of them. I was like, oh, okay. She was like, it's in the fridge and it has your name labeled. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. I didn't go in the fridge to look at it because honestly, I didn't really care too much. But I was like, okay, I got some food for the next day, you know, cool. So I put away my stuff, and as I'm leaving the locker room, Auntie's like, oh, they saved you food. So I was like, yeah, nurse so-and-so already told me. And she like, oh, okay. I'm like, yeah. So I go and start my shift, get my break done. In the middle of my shift, I see Auntie walking towards me, and in my head, I'm like, what she want? Auntie comes to me. Auntie goes, oh, me and we're gonna name her. Cause this is not the nurse that told me that I had food, but this is another nurse. We're gonna name her Oppie Nurse, cause she was an op. She was given op. So we're gonna name her Oppie Nurse. So Auntie comes to me and she goes, oh, me and Oppie Nurse ate your food.
Huh?
¿Qué pasó? Come again? Come again? So I'm like, what? Like, literally, like, what are you talking about? Like, what? And now that I really even think about it, the way she came to me without even fear, like, like, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, she just came on some, like, blunt type of time. Like, yo, like, it showed, like, she didn't even have respect for me. Like, now that I'm thinking back to it, like, wow, like, you really could come to somebody. You could really take something that belongs to somebody and then come to them with a straight face and, like, on some time and like, what are you gonna do about it? Like, I took your stuff, what are you gonna do about it? Like, what? So when she said that, I'm just so shocked. And as she like said that, after I said what, like, I see nurse, we're gonna name her Nurse 1, like the original nurse that told me that I had food saved. I'm like, Nurse 1, why Auntie telling me that her and Oppie Nurse ate my food? Nurse 1 is like, what? Why would they do that? That food was saved for you. It had your name on it. And I'm like, yeah, why would they do that? So at this point, like, I'm just pissed. I'm like, how you gonna take something that's mine without my permission? Like, what's up? Like, what's really going on? Like, just let me know. So when she seen, like, I was like starting to get like tight, she was like, oh, no, you know what, like, I'm just playing, like, no, we didn't eat your food. So I'm like, oh, like, yeah, because that would have been crazy. Like, so she goes like across from me and she's sitting down and then she sparks up her regular conversation with me, asking me a bunch of questions again about my life and things like that. And then she goes to say, how she needs to lose weight because, you know, her doctor was telling her something like that, blah, blah, blah. Like, now that I think about it, like, after the situation, you was talking about losing weight and you did what you did. Okay. I rest my case.
I rest my case.
So my shift ends and I went into the locker room and I'm like getting my stuff. So after I get my stuff, I see Tina in the locker room. I'm like, oh, Tina, you had you some food? And she was like, yeah. So I was like, oh, was it good? She was like, she didn't eat it yet. She gonna have it when she get home. And I was like, oh yeah, me too. I'm gonna eat it when I get home. So I open the fridge and I'm looking for my plate because they told me my plate had my name on it. So I see a plate with somebody else's name. I see another plate with somebody else's name and I don't see my food nowhere. So at this point, I'm like, hold on. Tina, I don't see my food. Tina like, oh, you don't see it in the fridge? And I'm like, no, I don't see it. She like, oh, well, maybe somebody took it. So I'm like, that's when like everything hit me. So I'm thinking back to when Auntie came to me and told me that they ate my food. And I seen Oppie Nurse right in front of the like staff lounge. So I'm like, what? So I think back to that and I'm like, okay, let me press Oppie Nurse about it because I want to know what's going on. I go outside and Oppie Nurse is in the middle of giving report to another nurse. So I wait until she done with her sentence and I'm like, yo, I need to talk to you. I didn't say yo, but I was like, did you and Auntie eat my food? She started laughing. She like, oh no, like automatically copping the plea, bro. Automatically, like when I tell you, like she like, oh, you know what, it wasn't just me, it was Tina, it was Auntie, and she brought in another coworker who I later asked that coworker about, and that coworker had nothing to do with it. I was just in utter shock. So I go back into the locker room and I'm like, Tina, you ate my food too? And Tina like, no, she did not eat my food. It was Auntie and Oppie Nurse. And I was like, but you see me go into the fridge and you knew what happened to my food, but you didn't tell me. She like, oh, she wanted Auntie and Oppie Nurse to tell me themselves what they did. She didn't want to be the one to tell. And again, I kind of get it because at the end of the day, she was Auntie's like bestie. Like that was her man's. But don't have me sitting there looking like a fool eating my food. And if she respected me, to be honest, while they was eating my food, she could have been like, no, don't do that. Go ask her first before you take her food. So apparently what the case was that Auntie opened my food, the food that had my name written on it. She went in the bag, opened the plates, looked at the food, and seen that it was pork inside. Like, it was like different meats and one of them was pork. So she's like, oh, she's Muslim, so let's just eat the food that was saved for me. Honestly, I feel like that was Allah saving me from eating that food, because I more than likely wouldn't have been able to tell like if it was pork or not. And that was kind of on me too, because I didn't tell them. I didn't even know they were saving me the food though. So, and if I did, I would have told them like, oh, don't put no pork in it. But the problem was that if you could touch something that belonged to me with my name on it, I don't care what it had in it. It could have had doodle in it. If it had my name on it and it was designated for me, if you could put your hands and touch it and open it, and not even only take it for yourself, but invite other people to eat it with you, that's like a slap to my face plus more. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, at this point, like, you just, like, you violated. At that point, I'm heated, and I'm just thinking about how I've been disrespected so much. Like, I've been treated, like, unfairly because of my age, and I know it's because of my age, because if I was somebody older, they would have been on that type of timing. They would have never did what they did. They probably would have, but honestly, I doubt it. So while Tina and Oppie nurses going back and forth, I just, like, leave them. And, like, I call my friend who worked at the same job as me, and I'm like, yo, I'm putting her onto it. She like, nah, that's crazy, like, they violated. I go home and like I put my mom on, and my mom is more so the type of person who's more like nice. My dad would put you in your place. Like, he goes off, and I think that I get my like defensiveness from my dad. When I was telling my mom about it, she's like, oh, well, you know what, don't even say nothing to them. I'm like, no, because if I don't say nothing to them, they're gonna like take it to another level. Like, that was just one thing. That was just food. My mom was on the same type of time where, like, you know, the food had pork in it. Like, I wouldn't have been able to eat it anyway, so it's a good thing that they ate it. Like, you know, everything happens for a reason. You know what I'm saying? But I also was on the type of time where, like, you know what, this hasn't just been one situation. This has been multiple situations. Like, the chair situation, the funny vibes, the disrespect. And I feel like once you disrespect me but also invite others to disrespect me, that's a huge issue. So I'm like, nah, I gotta put my foot down. I'm telling my sister about it too. She like, yeah, you should say something too. At that point, I labeled her as dangerous. She is a national threat. I need the FBI, CIA, police, law enforcement, everybody to come after this woman. She is dangerous. That night, woo, honey, I was on fumes. I was counting down the hours to go to work that night. I get to work, I'm just like on hops, like I'm not playing with nobody. So I go to Oppie nurse, I'm like, I need to talk to you. So she like, okay. So we go like towards, we're still close to like the nursing station, but like we're like in like a little room. But the people at the nursing station can still hear. I'm like, listen, I don't care what anybody tells you. If something is for me, do not touch it without my permission. And she like, okay. Like, she's like more so like on some time where, oh my God, like lower your voice. I don't want nobody to hear what I did. Like, it was giving that. Now it's time to get Auntie. As I'm walking to the staff lounge, I see Auntie walking towards me. She's eating a pear. And in my head, I'm just thinking like, damn, you eating again? As soon as I see her, I'm like, Auntie, I need to talk to you. She like, me? I already knew Tina had put her on about it. Like, she's not dumb. I already knew that Tina had told her about it. So the fact that she like try to be like, me? Like, yes, you. Who else? So I'm like, yes, you. She like, okay. And so we walk into the staff lounge. As soon as we get in, and I put my bag down on the table, I started packing. Why would you touch something that doesn't belong to you? Who do you think you are? Blah, blah, blah. I don't even remember half the stuff that I said, yo. But I just, like, I went off on her. I was like, don't ever touch anything that doesn't belong to you. I don't care what it had in it. You should have came to me and asked me for permission. And then on top of that, you lied to my face. She came to me and told me that they ate my food, but when she seen that I started getting tight, she like switched up. She's like, oh no, we didn't. So like, I just went off on her, and eventually word did get around, but I didn't care. I wanted everybody to hear about it, because nobody was finna play with me like how they played with me. So she's like, oh, I'm gonna give you $20 because that's what like everybody like had donated. I'm like, no, I don't want the money. I don't care about the money. You can keep the money, sweets. Keep the money, sweets. One thing you gonna give me though is that respect. And that's all I want. That's all I ever expected. Like, what are you doing? She had gave her friend the $20 to give to me in the room. I'm like, no, I don't want it. I put it right by the sink. And then later on, I guess one of them took it. I don't know who took it, if it was auntie or her friend, but they took it, and it was that. Like, after that, like, I didn't talk to auntie or Tina. I didn't talk to both of them for quite a while, and it was still like little funny stuff that would be going on. But then eventually, you know, auntie, of course, started like trying to befriend me and like spark up conversations. I couldn't avoid talking to her. Well, let me rephrase that. I talked to them, all three of them, auntie, Tina, and Oppie Nurse, whenever necessary. Like, of course, we're co-workers. We got to keep stuff professional. Whenever it was about patient care or anything related to that, getting report, like, of course, like, I would speak to them. But I'm talking about, like, on a cordial note, like, anything besides work related, it was no conversation with us. Like, I wasn't entertaining none of that BS. But then eventually, I decided to let it go. I was like, you know what? You know, I'm the type of person that, like, always holds grudges. But at the end of the day, this is a workplace. Even though, like, they did apologize, I feel like certain stuff, like, your first impression is always, like, everlasting. And after that, of course, like, you know, of course, I said, like, I ended on good notes with all of them. However, like, I've always, like, kept my guard up with them, because if they could do that, like, it could be more. And me, like, I've learned my lesson in the past with, like, friendships and other people. And also, too, like, after that situation, I was hesitant on, like, putting any food in the fridge, any drinks in the fridge. Like, I think I had went with like 2 months of me working there without putting stuff in the fridge, because of the fact, like, I was scared, like, oh my god, they might put something in my stuff, or they might drink a little or eat a little. Like, it was just like, it's so disgusting. Like, how are y'all supposed to be old? Like, I would expect that from people of my age group, but for older heads to do that, like, that's really crazy. And another funny thing is, like, after that situation, I had, like, came to work, like, a few weeks later, probably like 2 weeks later after that situation. 2 staff members that worked on that unit, they was like, oh, what you did was right. I can't believe that they did that. And it's good you went off on them like that, because they was gonna, like, continue playing with you because they thought you was quiet. And I was like, yeah. But then in my head, I'm like, damn, word did really get around, because those staff members didn't even work the shift that we worked at. So I'm glad, like, that situation happened, because it wasn't only a lesson for me, it was also a lesson for them. Like, they got the right one, all of them. And I bet, like, auntie will never do that again to anybody. And it was also a lesson for me too, because I learned not only to be careful with coworkers, but to also, like, you know, in situation where, like, events are held too, like, I kind of forgot, like, I need to remind people, like, I don't eat pork. Don't pack pork in the food. I really wanted to tell the story because I feel like a lot of young healthcare professionals like myself are really bullied a lot, are really treated unfairly, and are really played with, like, in jobs like this. Like, I know I'm not the only one that been through it. Moral of the story is, always stand up for yourself. Don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. Always put your foot down. Set boundaries with people. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this story time. This was my first story time. And again, if any of the characters in this story see this video, it's not that deep. We all learned, and I don't have any issues with you guys. I really feel like, you know, things just had to happen. Anyways, I hope that you guys enjoyed the story time. Give this video a thumbs up, and make sure you subscribe to my channel and turn on post notifications. Let me know if you guys would want to see another story time, because I have a bunch of other stories, but I don't know if I want to give y'all the tea. So let me know if you guys want to see another story time, and I'll more than likely film another one. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video.